Imagine for a moment that fear and hopelessness are shadows darkening our path. Now think of the Bible as that light which, though ancient, has never stopped shining, showing paths of peace and hope in the darkest moments. This sacred book has not only been a beacon for past generations, but continues to be an inexhaustible source for us today. The relevance of the Bible in our daily lives is undeniable. Throughout its pages, we find characters who, like us, faced giants of doubt and fear, but were not alone. God was with them every step of the way. In selecting the verses for this video, I focused on those that directly address our fears and strengthen our hope. It was not a random choice. Each verse has been picked for its power to touch the heart and revive the spirit, ensuring that we are not alone in our moments of uncertainty. This video is structured to guide you through a journey of reflection and discovery. We will start by exploring verses that teach us to confront and overcome fear, and then move to those that inspire us to nurture and embrace hope. Each section has been designed to offer you not only comfort, but also practical tools that you can apply in your daily life. I invite you not just to listen to these verses, but to make them your own. Reflect on how these ancient words can have a real and tangible impact today. As we move forward, think about how you can apply these teachings to change your life and perhaps the lives of those around you. Let's begin. Number 1, Joshua 1:9, God's call to strength and courage. Think of a moment in your life when it felt like everything depended on you, yet you felt completely overwhelmed by the magnitude of the task. That is exactly what Joshua experienced as he took on the leadership of the Israelites after Moses' death. Imagine being in his shoes, ready to lead an entire people into the Promised Land, knowing colossal challenges await. In this context, God speaks directly to Joshua with a strength and clarity that resonate through the ages. Be strong and courageous. The book of Joshua places us at a crucial moment of transition. Moses, the great leader who brought the Israelites out of Egypt and led them through the desert, has passed away. Now Joshua must take up the mantle. It's not just about continuing where Moses left off. Joshua has the responsibility of leading the people to conquer and settle in the Promised Land. It's a moment full of expectations and fears. The Israelites are about to face fortified cities and well-armed armies. At this turning point, God tells Joshua, "Have I not commanded you?" With these words, God not only gives him a mission, but also divine authority to carry it out. The assertion, "Have I not commanded you?" is powerful. It is not a question, but a declaration of divine backing. God himself stands behind Joshua's leadership. This is not merely a responsibility assigned by human circumstances, but a divine calling. Joshua can feel secure, not because he is a great strategist or a formidable warrior, but because the Almighty God is with him. The significance of this backing cannot be underestimated. Knowing that his leadership is ordained by God gives Joshua a solid foundation upon which to build his confidence and strength. When God tells Joshua, "Be strong and courageous," it's not just encouragement, but a command. The strength and courage God asks for are not just physical. Of course, Joshua will need strength to lead in battle, but he will also need emotional fortitude to make difficult decisions and spiritual courage to maintain faith amid adversity. This exhortation to strength and courage is a call for Joshua to fully trust in God, knowing that although the challenges are great, God's presence is even greater. The specific instruction, "Do not be afraid, do not be discouraged," implicitly acknowledges that there will be reasons to be afraid. The dangers and difficulties Joshua will face are real, but God tells him not to let fear paralyze or make him retreat. Instead of succumbing to intimidation, Joshua is to move forward with determination, trusting that God will guide and protect him. This instruction is a constant reminder that although fear is a natural reaction, it should not dominate our actions or define our decisions. God's promise, "The Lord your God will be with you wherever you go," is the ultimate guarantee of support, direction, and protection. No matter where Joshua is or what obstacles he faces, God will be with him. This promise is not just for Joshua, it is a universal truth that assures us of God's presence with us at every step we take. Knowing that God is with us gives us the confidence to face any challenge, knowing that we are not alone. So when you face your own challenges, remember the words God said to Joshua, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for I will be with you wherever you go." These words are not just for a biblical leader from thousands of years ago. They are for you here and now. God calls you to strength and courage and promises His constant presence. Let this truth fill you with hope and determination, knowing that with God by your side, you can overcome any obstacle. Number 2, Psalm 27:1, confidence in God as a source of courage. Psalm 27:1 is such a powerful phrase that it has become a beacon of hope for millions over the centuries. This psalm, written by King David, is not just ancient poetry, but a testimony to unshakable faith amid adversity. David, known for both his courage and moments of vulnerability, gives us a crucial lesson on trusting God. Have you ever felt lost in the dark, not knowing where to turn? David felt this too, and in those moments, he clung to the light of God. When David writes, "The Lord is my light and my salvation," he is using a powerful metaphor. Light guides us in the darkness, gives us clarity when we are confused, and reveals truth amid uncertainty. In our lives, this light of God can manifest in simple forms, like wise advice from a friend or a moment of inner peace amid chaos. Imagine facing your problems, knowing there is a light that never goes out. A constant guide that shows you the way, but light is not everything. God is also our salvation. In the context of the Old Testament, salvation is not just spiritual deliverance, but also tangible protection against physical dangers and enemies. David faced many threats, from giants like Goliath to enemies who sought to destroy him. In every danger, he saw God as his salvation. Today we can apply this spiritually by seeing God as the one who rescues us not only from physical dangers, but also from our own anxieties and internal fears. And here comes David's rhetorical question, "Whom shall I fear?" It's an expression of absolute trust, a contrast between the limitless power of God and the human threats we face. Reflect on your own fears. What makes you afraid? Can anything truly compare to the greatness of God? This question invites us to reflect and reframe our fears in light of divine omnipotence. God is not only light and salvation, but also the strength of our life. In Hebrew culture, strength is a profound concept. It's not just physical power, but a source of personal and emotional fortitude that allows us to face adversity with courage. God as our strength provides us with the resilience needed to overcome obstacles and move forward even when everything seems lost. David reinforces this idea with another rhetorical question, "Of whom shall I be afraid?" This not only reaffirms his confidence, but also implicitly challenges the sources of fear in our lives. With God as our strength, fear loses its power over us. It invites us to confront our fears with a new perspective, knowing that we are not alone, and that our strength comes from an infinite source. So how do we cultivate this confidence in our daily lives? It's not something that happens overnight. It requires practice, reflection, and a constant connection with God. We can start by facing our fears and anxieties from the perspective of this confidence in God. Remember that David, despite being a king and a brave warrior, also had his moments of doubt and fear. Yet in each of those moments, he turned his gaze to God, finding in him the strength and courage to move forward. Reflect on this psalm in your moments of prayer and meditation. Let David's words inspire and strengthen you. Face your fears knowing that, like David, you have God by your side as your light, salvation, and strength. Whom shall you fear? With God, there is no deep darkness or powerful enemy that can defeat you. Dare to trust, and you will see how your life transforms with the light and strength of God. Number 3, Isaiah 41:10, God's promise of strength and constant support. Isaiah 41:10 is such a powerful verse, full of promises. It's as if God is whispering in our ears during our darkest moments, saying, "Do not fear, for I am with you." Imagine receiving that divine invitation to overcome fear. It's not just a simple suggestion, but a firm promise that we are not alone in every situation of uncertainty and challenge. God is present, providing us with security and protection. Knowing He is by our side gives us the confidence to face whatever comes our way. "For I am your God who strengthens you." What a powerful statement. Here, God is not just telling us not to faint, but reminding us of that intimate relationship we have with Him. He is our God, not a distant deity, but one who is close, strengthening us in our moments of weakness. This promise is especially comforting when we feel that our strength is failing us. In those moments, we can find in God the strength we need to keep going. Then there is the continuing promise, "I will help you." This is not occasional or sporadic help. It's a promise of constant and ongoing assistance, regardless of circumstances. God promises to be there for us, providing support. Think about it. In every challenge, big or small, we have the assurance that God is willing to help us. This gives us a solid foundation upon which to build our faith and trust in Him. "I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." The right hand in biblical culture symbolizes power and authority. When God says He will uphold us with His right hand, He is saying that He will use His power and authority to sustain us. Not only that, but His righteousness is the foundation of this support. It's as if God is lifting us with His powerful hand, ensuring that we do not fall. This image of God sustaining us is incredibly comforting. So how can we apply this verse in our daily lives? Facing our fears and anxieties, knowing that God is with us, completely changes our perspective. We can remember this promise in moments of doubt by repeating to ourselves, "God is with me, He strengthens me, He always helps me." This not only calms us, but also gives us the confidence to face any challenge. Remembering and trusting in God's presence in our daily lives is essential. We can do this through prayer, meditation, and simply recalling God's promises in times of need. Developing a faith perspective in difficult times is not easy, but with the certainty that God is with us, we can find the peace and strength needed to move forward. Isaiah 41:10 is not just a verse to read, it's a promise to live by. It invites us to face life with renewed confidence in God, knowing that we are not alone. He is with us, strengthening, helping, and upholding us with His powerful hand. So when you face your own challenges, remember these words. Let them fill you with courage and hope, and trust that God is always with you every step of the way. Number 4, Psalm 56:3, trust in God in the face of fear. When you find yourself in those moments of fear, when it seems like everything around you is falling apart, Psalm 56 offers a safe refuge. "When I am afraid, I will trust in you." This psalm, traditionally attributed to David, is believed to have been written during a time of persecution. Imagine being in a situation where you constantly feel threatened, where uncertainty and danger are your daily bread. It is in this context that David gives us an invaluable lesson about trusting God. Recognizing fear is the first step. We all experience fear at some point in our lives, whether it's fear of the unknown, fear of losing someone we love, or fear of not being enough. David, with all his bravery, also experienced fear. The beauty of this verse is its emotional honesty. It does not deny fear, but sincerely acknowledges it. "When I am afraid." Fear is a human reality, and it's okay to admit it. However, David does not stop at fear. The key is what follows. "I will trust in you." Here we see an active decision to trust in God despite fear. It is not passive trust, but a deliberate choice. God becomes the object of our trust in those fearful moments. This trust is not a denial of fear, but a powerful response to it. It says, "Yes, I am afraid, but I choose to trust in God." This statement has profound implications for us as believers. The relationship between fear and trust is fascinating. We often think that having faith means not having fear, but Psalm 56 shows us that they can coexist. Being afraid does not mean our faith is weak. On the contrary, it is an opportunity to transform our fear into trust. Trust in God doesn't magically eliminate our fears, but it does give us a new perspective and strength to face them. It is a continuous process of bringing our fears to God and remembering His faithfulness. So how do we cultivate this trust in God amidst fear? First, it's crucial to have a constant dialogue with God. Prayer is a powerful tool. Talk to God about your fears, don't hide them. Second, remember God's promises. Write down verses like this one and read them when you feel afraid. Third, surround yourself with a faith community that supports you and reminds you of God's goodness. Finally, practice gratitude. Thank God for what He has done in the past. Our trust for the future comes from a theological perspective that God is our refuge and protector. The Bible is filled with promises about divine protection. God's sovereignty means He has control over all circumstances that cause fear. This doesn't mean we will never face difficulties, but that God is with us in the midst of them, sustaining us and guiding us through every challenge. Reflect on this. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. It's not just a verse to read, it's a promise to live by. Face your fears with the certainty that God is with you. He is your refuge, your strength, and your protector. Let this truth fill you with peace and courage. Trust that no matter what happens, God is by your side, upholding you with His unconditional love. Number 5, Philippians 4:6-7, overcoming anxiety through prayer and God's peace. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by anxiety, as if the worries of life were piling up one on top of the other? Let me share something incredible we find in Philippians 4:6-7. The Apostle Paul wrote these powerful words while he was in prison. Yes, in prison. And yet he offers us clear guidance on how to handle anxiety. Do not be anxious about anything, says Paul. Imagine the strength of these words coming from someone facing so many difficulties. It's not a denial of problems, but an invitation to trust in God beyond circumstances. Notice that Paul doesn't ignore life's challenges. By saying, "Do not be anxious about anything," he acknowledges that life has its challenges, but also calls us to a radical trust in God. It's not about pretending everything is okay when it isn't, but about placing our worries in God's hands. This is where the second part comes in. Let your requests be made known to God. How many times do we try to carry our burdens alone? Paul reminds us that we have a divine resource at our disposal. Prayer is like a direct line to God, where we can express our needs and concerns. And it's not just about asking. Paul speaks of everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Gratitude has incredible power, even in difficult times. Thanking God for what He has already done in our lives changes our perspective. Imagine balancing your requests with recognizing blessings even while asking for help. This practice not only transforms our prayers, but also our hearts. Now let's talk about God's peace. Paul says this peace surpasses all understanding. What does that mean? It's a peace we cannot fully explain with words, a tranquility that goes beyond circumstances. It's not the peace the world offers, which depends on everything going well. It's a peace that remains firm even when everything around us is chaotic. It's like an anchor in the midst of a storm, an inner calm that only God can give. This peace has a protective function. It will guard your hearts and minds in Christ Jesus. Our emotions and thoughts, areas where anxiety often takes root, are protected by the peace of God. It is a shield that wraps around us, ensuring that no matter what we face, we are upheld by Christ. This protection is not temporary, it is ongoing. Christ Jesus is the foundation of this peace, ensuring that it is not something we achieve on our own, but a divine gift. So how can we apply this in our daily lives? First, make a habit of prayer and gratitude. Don't wait until you're in a crisis to talk to God. Maintain constant communication with Him. bringing your worries and thankfulness daily. Second, remember that God's peace is always available to us. When anxiety begins to fill your thoughts, recall this promise and actively seek that peace through prayer. Practicing this can radically change our perspective. We are not alone in our struggles. God invites us to trust Him, to lay our burdens at His feet, and to experience His supernatural peace. So next time you feel overwhelmed, remember Philippians 4. Bring your requests to God, thank Him for His blessings, and let His peace guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. Live with the certainty that no matter what happens, we have a God who listens, strengthens, and offers a peace that transcends all understanding. Number 6, 2 Timothy 1:7. The Spirit given by God, power, love, and self-control. You know, when we face challenges in our lives, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and fearful. But what if I told you that God has not given us a spirit of fearfulness? That's what 2 Timothy 1:7 teaches us. Paul wrote this letter to Timothy, a young Christian leader, to give him advice and encouragement. Imagine a young person trying to lead and maintain faith during difficult times. Paul reminds him that Christian character is forged in the power, love, and self-control that God grants us. Let's break it down a bit. First, Paul says, "For God has not given us a spirit of fearfulness." This is very important because we often confuse our own insecurities and fears with a lack of faith. However, fear does not come from God. That feeling of cowardice and wanting to back away from challenges is the opposite of the spirit that God gives us. This spirit of cowardice should not define or stop us. By recognizing that our fear does not come from God, we can start to confront it with the truth of His Word. Instead of cowardice, God has given us a spirit of power. Do you realize how profound this is? We're not just talking about physical strength, but spiritual power. This power comes directly from God and enables us to face any situation. It is a power that surpasses our human limitations. Think about how this power can manifest in your daily life. Whether you're facing a challenge at work, a family difficulty, or a personal obstacle, this power is available to you. It is an inner strength that allows you to persevere and overcome. But power alone is not enough. Paul also mentions love. Love is an essential component of the Spirit God gives us. This love is not only for ourselves, but also for others and for God. Love transforms our relationships and attitudes. It helps us see people with compassion and act with kindness. When we face problems, doing so with love completely changes our perspective. It makes us more patient, understanding, and willing to help others. And then we have self-control. This is a quality we often overlook, but is vital. Self-control is the ability to control ourselves, our emotions, and our actions. In the biblical context, it is a sign of spiritual maturity. Having self-control means we are not slaves to our emotions or desires. It enables us to make wise decisions and live in a way that honors God. Developing self-control is not easy, but it is possible with the help of the Holy Spirit. Now, how do these three qualities, power, love, and self-control, interrelate? They don't function in isolation. They balance and complement each other. Power without love can be destructive. Love without power can be ineffective. Self-control without love or power can be empty. But together, they create a balanced and effective life in Christ. Think about biblical and contemporary examples where you see these qualities in action. You'll see how these leaders have impacted others and faced challenges with grace and strength. So how can we apply this in our daily lives? First, recognize and accept that God has given us this spirit. It's not something we have to earn. It's already ours. Second, actively cultivate these qualities. Pray for power, show love in your actions, and practice self-control in your decisions. By doing so, not only do we overcome our fears and doubts, but we also strengthen our Christian witness and spiritual leadership. Remember, the Spirit God has given you is one of power, love, and self-control. Live with this certainty and let these qualities guide every aspect of your life. Don't let fear hold you back. Face each day with the strength and confidence that come from God, and you'll see how your life and the lives of those around you are transformed. Number 7. Deuteronomy 31:6. Deuteronomy 31:6 is a powerful verse that speaks directly to the importance of courage and strength, especially when we are on the verge of facing great challenges. In his final address to the people of Israel, Moses tells them, "Be strong and courageous." This call is not just to physical strength, but also to emotional and spiritual strength. They were about to enter the Promised Land, a crucial moment that required courage. Courage in times of challenge is crucial, and Moses knew this. The relationship between faith and courage is profound. Having faith in God gives us the courage needed to face anything. When Moses says, "Do not be afraid or terrified," he is speaking of not being afraid of the enemies and challenges the Israelites will face. Imagine being in that situation, knowing that fortified cities and peoples are ahead of you. It's natural to feel fear, but here Moses gives us a strategy to overcome that fear. Trust in God. Human fear is real, but trust in God is even more powerful. By trusting Him, we can face any situation with an attitude of bravery. The phrase, "For the Lord your God goes with you," is an affirmation of God's active presence. We are not alone in our struggles. God is our constant companion. This divine presence is not passive. It is active and engaged in our journey and our battles. Imagine facing a challenge knowing that God is beside you, guiding and supporting you every step of the way. This completely changes our perspective and gives us a strength that goes beyond our own abilities. Moses also assures us, He will never leave you nor forsake you. This is a promise of God's constant faithfulness. In moments of doubt or loneliness, remembering this promise can be a great comfort. The assurance of divine care allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, God will not abandon us. This is very important because we often confuse our own insecurities and fears with a lack of faith. However, fear does not come from God. That feeling of cowardice and wanting to back away from challenges is the opposite of the spirit that God gives us. This spirit of cowardice should not define or stop us. By recognizing that our fear does not come from God, we can start to confront it with the truth of His Word. Instead of cowardice, God has given us a spirit of power. Do you realize how profound this is? We're not just talking about physical strength, but spiritual power. This power comes directly from God and enables us to face any situation. It is a power that surpasses our human limitations. Think about how this power can manifest in your daily life. Whether you're facing a challenge at work, a family difficulty, or a personal obstacle, this power is available to you. It is an inner strength that allows you to persevere and overcome. But power alone is not enough. Paul also mentions love. Love is an essential component of the Spirit God gives us. This love is not only for ourselves, but also for others and for God. Love transforms our relationships and attitudes. It helps us see people with compassion and act with kindness. When we face problems, doing so with love completely changes our perspective. It makes us more patient, understanding, and willing to help others. And then we have self-control. This is a quality we often overlook but is vital. Self-control is the ability to control ourselves, our emotions, and our actions. In the biblical context, it is a sign of spiritual maturity. Having self-control means we are not slaves to our emotions or desires. It enables us to make wise decisions and live in a way that honors God. Developing self-control is not easy, but it is possible with the help of the Holy Spirit. Now, how do these three qualities, power, love, and self-control, interrelate? They don't function in isolation. They balance and complement each other. Power without love can be destructive. Love without power can be ineffective. Self-control without love or power can be empty. But together, they create a balanced and effective life in Christ. Think about biblical and contemporary examples where you see these qualities in action. You'll see how these leaders have impacted others and faced challenges with grace and strength. So, how can we apply this in our daily lives? First, recognize and accept that God has given us this spirit. It's not something we have to earn, it's already ours. Second, actively cultivate these qualities. Pray for power, show love in your actions, and practice self-control in your decisions. By doing so, not only do we overcome our fears and doubts, but we also strengthen our Christian witness and spiritual leadership. Remember, the Spirit God has given you is one of power, love, and self-control. Live with this certainty and let these qualities guide every aspect of your life. Don't let fear hold you back. Face each day with the strength and confidence that come from God, and you'll see how your life and the lives of those around you are transformed. Number 7, Deuteronomy 31:6. Deuteronomy 31:6 is a powerful verse that speaks directly to the importance of courage and strength, especially when we are on the verge of facing great challenges. In his final address to the people of Israel, Moses tells them, "Be strong and courageous." This call is not just to physical strength, but also to emotional and spiritual strength. They were about to enter the Promised Land, a crucial moment that required courage. Courage in times of challenge is crucial, and Moses knew this. The relationship between faith and courage is profound. Having faith in God gives us the courage needed to face anything. When Moses says, "Do not be afraid or terrified," he is speaking of not being afraid of the enemies and challenges the Israelites will face. Imagine being in that situation, knowing that fortified cities and peoples are ahead of you. It's natural to feel fear, but here Moses gives us a strategy to overcome that fear. Trust in God. Human fear is real, but trust in God is even more powerful. By trusting Him, we can face any situation with an attitude of bravery. The phrase, "For the Lord your God goes with you," is an affirmation of God's active presence. We are not alone in our struggles. God is our constant companion. This divine presence is not passive, it is active and engaged in our journey and our battles. Imagine facing a challenge knowing that God is beside you, guiding and supporting you every step of the way. This completely changes our perspective and gives us a strength that goes beyond our own abilities. Moses also assures us, He will never leave you nor forsake you. This is a promise of God's constant faithfulness. In moments of doubt or loneliness, remembering this promise can be a great comfort. The assurance of divine care allows us to move forward with confidence, knowing that no matter what happens, God will not abandon us. This is a truth we can apply to any difficult situation, remembering that God is faithful and will always be with us. So how can we apply this verse in our daily lives? First, let us cultivate faith-based courage every day. Remember God's promises and His constant presence through prayer, Bible reading, or simply reflecting on His faithfulness in our lives. Second, face challenges with confidence in divine promises. By remembering that God is with us and will never leave us, we can tackle any obstacle with courage and determination. Think about your own challenges, those promised lands you need to conquer. Whether it's a situation at work, a family issue, or a personal challenge, remember Deuteronomy 31:6. Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified. He goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. This promise is for you here and now. Let these words fill you with courage and confidence. Face your challenges with the assurance that God is by your side, guiding and strengthening you every step of the way. Courage comes not just from our own strength, but from trust in a faithful and ever-present God. Number 8, Psalm 34:4. You know, we all face moments when fear seems to take control. Those long, lonely nights when anxiety keeps us awake, or those days when it feels like the weight of the world is on our shoulders. David, the author of Psalm 34:4, was no stranger to these feelings. In his personal testimony, he offers us powerful guidance. I sought the Lord, and He answered me. He delivered me from all my fears. Imagine David, a man on the run, facing powerful enemies and life or death situations. Yet in the midst of all this, he chooses to seek the Lord. Here, seeking God is active. It's not just a passive wish, but a deliberate action. David shows us that a personal relationship with God involves a constant search. This search can manifest in prayer, meditation, worship, or simply in a heart ready to meet God at every moment of the day. And the wonderful thing is that David's search is not in vain. He answered me, he says. This simple phrase holds a deep truth. God listens. He is not a distant or uninterested listener, but one who is attentive and compassionate. When we bring our fears and concerns to Him, we can have confidence that God hears us. Our faith in His ability to listen and respond is crucial. It's not about throwing words into the void, but having a genuine conversation with our Creator. David goes on to say that God delivered him from all his fears. Think about that. Not from some, but from all of David's fears. These fears were real and tangible: the threat of enemies, the uncertainty of the future, the pressure of leadership. Yet through his seeking and God's response, he experiences complete deliverance. This process of fear's release is a profound transformation. It takes us from a state of anxiety and worry to one of peace and confidence. The contrast is clear and powerful. So how do we apply this in our lives? First, we must actively seek God in times of fear. This means opening our hearts in prayer, sharing our anxieties, and waiting for His response. Recognizing and expressing our fears to God is the first step toward liberation. We should not hide our fears, but bring them to the One who can transform them. The interconnection between seeking, listening, and deliverance is vital in our spiritual experience. Persevering in seeking God, even when we don't get an immediate response, is crucial. The expectation of divine response and deliverance keeps us steadfast and hopeful. God promises that just as He did for David, He will also listen to us and deliver us from our fears. Reflect on this. David, a man with many fears, found deliverance through his seeking of God. This is not just an ancient story, but a living promise for you and me. Seek the Lord with all your heart. Trust that He hears you and will deliver you from your fears. Let this truth transform your life. No matter how great the fear, remember that God is greater. His presence gives you the assurance and peace you need to face any challenge. So, in your moments of fear, remember David's testimony. Seek God actively, trust that He hears you, and await deliverance from all your fears. This is the promise we have in this psalm, a promise that invites us to live with courage and confidence in the faithful presence of God. Number 9, Isaiah 43:1. Imagine a moment when you feel completely overwhelmed by uncertainty and fear. It is in those times that Isaiah 43:1 offers a powerful and comforting promise. But now, this is what the Lord says. He who created you, Jacob, He who formed you, Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. These words are not just ancient, but have profound relevance for us today. In the book of Isaiah, we find a message from God to Israel during times of great uncertainty. God presents Himself as the creator and formulator of His people, a reminder that their identity and purpose come directly from Him. When God says He created and formed Jacob and Israel, He is reaffirming the idea that we are works of His hands, designed with a specific purpose. This relationship between creation and divine purpose gives us a solid foundation for understanding who we are and why we exist. The use of the names Jacob and Israel is significant. They are not just historical names, but represent the ongoing relationship between God and His people through generations. Jacob, who was renamed Israel, symbolizes the transformation and covenant that God maintains with His people. This collective identity reminds us that as part of God's people, we share in this divine promise and protection. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. What a powerful statement. Divine redemption is not just a past act, but a present reality that combats our fear. Knowing that we have been redeemed by God, rescued and restored, gives us unshakable security. This redemption assures us that no matter what circumstances we face, God has already done what is necessary to protect and guide us. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. In biblical culture, naming something or someone implies authority and belonging. By naming us, God declares that we belong to Him exclusively. This belonging to God gives us a profound sense of worth and security. We are His, and this means we are under His constant care and protection. So how do we apply this in our daily lives? First, we must live with the assurance of being created and redeemed by God. This is not just an abstract theological concept, but a practical truth that affects how we view our lives and challenges. Overcoming fear based on our identity in God means daily remembering that we belong to Him, that He has formed and redeemed us. We can start each day by acknowledging our belonging to God. In moments of doubt or fear, we can recall this promise, "You are mine." This simple act of remembering and affirming our identity in God can transform our perspective and give us the strength to face any challenge. This verse invites us to live with a renewed confidence in the security that comes from being created, formed, and redeemed by God. No matter how great the fear or uncertainty, we can rest in the assurance that we are valuable to God and under His constant care. By living with this truth, we can face each day with courage and hope, knowing that God, our Creator and Redeemer, is always with us. Number 10, Psalm 23:4. You know, we all go through tough times in life. Sometimes those difficulties feel like a dark and frightening valley, where it seems there is no way out. Psalm 23, written by King David, offers an incredibly comforting perspective on how to face those moments. David, known for his unwavering faith, tells us, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." Imagine walking through a dark valley where death seems to lurk around every corner. This valley of the shadow of death symbolizes the most extreme trials we can face, perhaps an illness, the loss of a loved one, or a personal crisis that leaves us breathless. David does not ignore these realities. He acknowledges that life can be harsh and challenging. But here's the key. In the midst of that valley, he declares, "I will fear no evil." This is a statement of trust that transcends circumstances. In other words, even if things around you are dark and frightening, your inner state can be filled with peace and confidence. How is this possible? David's answer is clear. "For you are with me." The promise of God's constant presence is what changes everything. When you know that God is with you, your perspective shifts. You are not alone in your struggle. Divine companionship in moments of solitude and fear offers incomparable comfort. Imagine having someone by your side who loves you unconditionally and has the power to guide and protect you. That is God's promise. His presence transforms fear into peace, despair into hope. David also mentions, "Your rod and your staff, they comfort me." In pastoral culture, the rod and staff were essential tools. The rod was used to guide and direct the sheep, while the staff was used to protect them from dangers. God, as our good shepherd, uses these tools to guide and protect us. When facing difficult decisions or threats, we can trust that God will guide us with His rod and protect us with His staff. This imagery provides us with a deep sense of security. No matter how uncertain the path, we know that God is guiding and caring for us every step of the way. How do we apply this in our daily lives? First, maintain trust in God, even in times of crisis. Remember that His presence is with you, even in the darkest moments. Actively seek His guidance and protection in times of prayer. Entrust your fears and concerns to God, allowing Him to use His rod to guide you and His staff to protect you. This trust does not eliminate challenges, but completely changes how we face them. Additionally, recognize God's presence in all difficult situations. It can be a daily reminder, a brief prayer, or meditating on this verse. Let the promise of His companionship fill you with peace. Just as David found comfort in God's rod and staff, You too can find strength in His guidance and protection. Psalm 23:4 invites us to live with renewed confidence in God's presence. No matter how dark the valley you traverse, you are not alone. God is with you, guiding you, protecting you, and giving you strength. Let this truth transform your life. Face each day with the assurance that the Good Shepherd is by your side, and nothing can separate you from His love and care. Number 11, Matthew 6:34. Living in the present without anxiety about the future. Have you ever been so worried about what might happen tomorrow that it's hard to enjoy today? Jesus addresses this feeling directly in Matthew 6, part of His famous Sermon on the Mount. He says, "Therefore do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own." Let's break this down and see how it can be applied to our lives in a practical and meaningful way. When Jesus says, "Do not worry about tomorrow," He is inviting us to a radically different way of living. Worry in this context is not simply about planning wisely. Planning is wise, but excessive anxiety robs us of peace. This excessive worry traps us in a never-ending cycle of what-ifs that prevents us from fully living in the present. Think about how worry about the future can impact your day-to-day life, creating stress and mental exhaustion that could be avoided. Jesus continues, "Each day has enough trouble of its own." Here He acknowledges that each day has its own inevitable challenges. We cannot avoid problems, but worrying about them before they occur is pointless. The inevitable nature of daily challenges means there will always be something to worry about. But living one day at a time allows us to face these problems with a clear mind and a calm heart. Imagine how your life might change if you could focus on solving today's problems without the added burden of tomorrow's troubles. Each day has enough trouble of its own. In this context, trouble refers to the challenges and difficulties we face. Each day has enough problems by itself. By focusing on present issues, we can handle them more effectively. This doesn't mean we ignore the future, but that we don't let the fear of what might happen paralyze us today. Facing current difficulties without anticipating future problems gives us the ability to live with more peace and purpose. How do we apply this verse in our daily lives? First, develop trust in divine provision. God knows what we need and is in control. Remembering this truth can alleviate much of our anxiety. Second, focus on practical strategies to live in the present. This may include practicing meditation, daily prayer, or simply taking a moment to breathe and be present. These practices help us manage stress and anxiety from a Christian perspective. Connecting this teaching with other biblical passages reinforces its message. Jesus repeatedly speaks about trust in God and not allowing worries to dominate us. In Luke 12:25, He asks, "Who of you by worrying can add a single hour to your life?" This reminder of the futility of worry encourages us to trust more in God and less in our own abilities to control the future. Living in the present also positively impacts our relationships. When we are preoccupied with the future, it's difficult to be fully present with our loved ones. By applying this biblical passage, we not only find personal peace, but also enhance our interactions with others, showing greater love and attention. In summary, Jesus calls us to free ourselves from the burden of anxiety about the future and to trust in God's provision and guidance for each day. This not only helps us live with more peace and serenity, but also allows us to face daily challenges with a clearer mind and heart. So the next time you feel that tomorrow's worries are stealing your peace today, remember Jesus' words and find comfort in knowing that God is with you at every moment, giving you the strength to handle the present and the faith to trust in the future. Number 12, Psalm 91, Trust and Security in God's Protection. Psalm 91, 1-2 is one of those passages that truly touches the heart and fills us with a sense of peace and security. Imagine living under the shadow of the Almighty, feeling His constant protection in every aspect of your life. It says, "He who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Here, the concept of dwelling is key. It is not about an occasional visit, but about a continual presence in God's presence. When we talk about dwelling in relation to God, we mean actively seeking His closeness, making His presence our home. The title Most High speaks of God's supremacy. He is above all, and by being under His shadow, we are covered by His infinite greatness. Under the shadow of the Almighty uses the image of shade in a warm climate. Think of a refuge from the scorching sun, a place where you can find relief and rest. The shadow of the Almighty not only protects us, but also comforts us. The term Almighty reminds us that God's power is limitless, and His protection is continuous and secure. When David says, "I will say of the Lord, He is my refuge and my fortress," he is making a personal declaration of trust in God. It is not just an acknowledgement of God's power, but that He is our refuge and strength. A refuge is a place of safety and rest, where we can feel secure, and a fortress is a source of strength and resilience, something that upholds us in the toughest times. This combination of security and strength is exactly what we need when facing adversities. The psalm continues, "My God, in whom I trust." The word "my" highlights the relational aspect of faith. We are not talking about a distant God, but a close and personal one. Trusting in God is a continuous and deliberate act. It is not something that happens overnight, but a daily decision to rely on Him. In daily life, this trust manifests in how we face challenges, knowing we are not alone. So how do we apply this to our lives? First, we need to learn to dwell in God's presence. This involves developing a personal relationship with Him through prayer, reading the Bible, and meditating on His promises. It's not about a religious act, but a genuine and ongoing connection with our Creator. Look for moments in your day to pause and recognize God's presence around you. Trust in God during adversity is crucial. When things get tough, remember these words, "My refuge and my fortress." Instead of being overwhelmed by fear and anxiety, we can find rest in the certainty that God protects and sustains us. The shadow of the Almighty is a place of comfort where we can find peace amid the storm. This psalm invites us to live with renewed confidence in God's protection. No matter what you face, you can know that God is your refuge and strength. Allow this truth to transform your daily perspective. By dwelling in His presence and trusting in His power, you will find a peace and security that only He can offer. Live each day under the shadow of the Most High, and let His protection and strength be your guide and comfort. Number 13, the peace that surpasses understanding. Imagine sitting with Jesus at the Last Supper, knowing that difficult times are ahead. In that context, Jesus looks at His disciples and says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. I do not give to you as the world gives. Do not let your hearts be troubled, nor let them be afraid." John 14:27. These words, spoken in the midst of uncertainty and fear, are an invaluable gift. Jesus offers a peace that is unlike the peace the world offers. The world's peace often depends on external circumstances, a life without problems, economic security, stable relationships. But Jesus gives us a peace that transcends all that. It is an inner tranquility, a harmony that comes from a deep and sincere relationship with God. This peace does not vanish when things get tough. Instead, it strengthens. The scene of the Last Supper is solemn and full of meaning. Jesus knows His disciples are about to face His arrest and crucifixion. Instead of leaving them with words of despair, He offers them comfort, security, and hope. He tells them not to let their hearts be troubled or afraid. It's as if He is saying, "Yes, difficult times will come, but my peace will be with you, and that will be enough to overcome any adversity." The peace Jesus gives is an inner state, not the absence of problems. It does not mean everything in our lives will be perfect, but that in the midst of storms, we can have deep calm because we know God is with us. This peace reflects our faith in God and His plan for our lives. It's trusting that no matter what happens, He is in control and working for our good. The repetition of the word peace in Jesus' words emphasizes its importance. It is not a mere wish for well-being, but a firm promise. By saying, "not as the world gives," Jesus highlights the uniqueness of this peace. This is not a temporary solution, but a deep and lasting peace that only He can offer. "My peace I give to you" is the antidote to fear. Jesus assures us that even when we face challenges and difficulties, His presence will strengthen us. Fear may try to paralyze us, but Jesus' peace gives us the courage to move forward. It is a peace that calms our anxieties and gives us the confidence to face the future with hope. Remember how Jesus addressed His disciples with tenderness and compassion. They were troubled, filled with questions and fears. But Jesus, with His infinite love, gave them a reason not to be afraid. He reminded them that His peace was with them, a peace that does not depend on circumstances, but on a relationship with Him. In our lives, we can apply this teaching by actively seeking closeness to God through prayer, meditation, and worship. We can experience the peace Jesus offers, which is not about ignoring our problems, but facing them with the assurance that we are not alone. God's presence transforms our perspective, and His peace sustains us even in the darkest moments. So when you find yourself facing challenges, remember Jesus' words, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you." Let this peace flood your heart and mind. Trust that no matter what you face, God is with you. His peace will guide and strengthen you, enabling you to overcome any adversity. Jesus' peace is an incomparable gift, an eternal promise that supports us at all times. Number 14, casting your cares on God. Imagine carrying a backpack full of stones, each stone representing a worry, an anxiety, or something that keeps you awake at night. Now think about the Apostle Peter's words in 1 Peter 5:7. "Cast all your anxiety on Him, because He cares for you." This is an incredible invitation from God to let go of those burdens and not carry them alone. God tells us we can leave our worries with Him because He deeply cares for us. Peter, writing to the early Christians, understood the common anxieties of life well. Anxiety can come in many forms. Concerns about the future, fear about our health, worries about our relationships, all of which can create emotional overwhelm that feels impossible to manage. But here's the key: God does not want us to bear these anxieties alone. He invites us to cast them onto Him, to let go and trust. The verb cast implies an intentional action. It is not something that happens automatically. It requires a deliberate act of releasing our burdens. It's as if God is saying, "Pass me that backpack full of stones. I will carry it for you." This act of letting go is an act of faith and trust. By doing so, we acknowledge that God is capable of handling what we cannot. The reason we can do this is clear: because He cares for you. This is not just a statement, it is a promise. God, in His infinite love and compassion, cares about every detail of our lives. His unconditional love provides us with comfort and strength. Knowing that the God of the universe cares for us personally gives us a peace that nothing else can offer. When we cast our anxieties on God, we experience a profound release. It's like taking a huge weight off our shoulders, allowing us to experience inner peace and confidence. We are no longer overwhelmed by our worries because we know that God is in control. This release not only eases our minds, but also renews our perspective. We can face each day with new confidence and serenity. Consider the benefits of casting your anxieties on God. We not only find mental peace, but also emotional relief. By trusting in God, our worries no longer have the same power over us. We become calmer, more focused, and more capable of handling the situations we face. It's a total transformation of how we live and confront challenges. God's care is evident in His unconditional love, His power, and His constant presence. We are not alone in our struggles. God is with us every step of the way, providing His support and love. This assurance allows us to live with greater peace and security. So how do we practice this? Start with prayer. Talk to God about your worries, each of those stones in your backpack. Tell Him you trust Him to carry those burdens. Then remember this promise daily. In moments of anxiety, return to these words. Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you. Let this truth sink into your heart and mind. By doing this, you will find an inner peace that transcends any circumstance. We are not meant to carry our burdens alone. God invites us to cast our anxieties on Him and trust in His loving care. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remember that God is there, ready to take your worries and give you His peace. Live with the confidence that God cares for you and let this truth transform your life. Number 15. Do not fear, I will uphold you. Isaiah 41:13. Imagine being in a moment of deep uncertainty, surrounded by challenges and fears. In that context, the words of the prophet Isaiah resonate with comforting strength. For I, the Lord your God, will hold your right hand, saying to you, Fear not, I will help you. Isaiah 41:13. These words were not only a balm for the people of Israel in their time, but are also for us today. God presents Himself as our protector and support, assuring us that we are not alone in our difficulties. God holds us with His right hand, a symbol of power and close care. Imagine a father holding his child's hand as they cross a busy street. That firm and secure hand offers protection and guidance. This is how God supports us. It is not a distant or indifferent help, but a personal and active intervention. God takes us by the hand, guides us, and protects us with every step we take. God's invitation to not fear is clear and emphatic. He says, "Do not fear," twice in this verse, emphasizing the importance of trusting in Him. Fear can paralyze us, make us doubt and lose hope. But God reminds us that with Him by our side, we have nothing to fear. His presence provides comfort and security even amid the fiercest storms. God not only holds us and invites us not to fear, but also promises His help. I will help you, He says. This promise is a guarantee that God will intervene in our situations, providing the support and solutions we need. It is not a vague or conditional help, but a direct and personal statement from God. He sees our needs, understands our fears, and is ready to act on our behalf. The people of Israel, facing difficulties and anxieties, found in Isaiah's words a message of hope, comfort, and strength. Similarly, in our own moments of uncertainty, we can find the same comfort in God's promises. His protective and loving power is a firm rock to which we can cling. When we feel our strength waning, we can remember that God holds us with His right hand, offering us His guidance and power. I hold you by your right hand is not just a comforting phrase. It is a promise of protection, guidance, and divine power. It tells us that God is not only with us, but is actively working for our good. Facing life's challenges with this confidence changes our perspective. We are no longer alone in our struggles. We are accompanied by the Almighty who holds us by the hand. So when you face your own challenges and feel overwhelmed by anxiety, remember these words from Isaiah. Let the promise of God penetrate your heart. Do not fear, I will help you. Allow this truth to transform how you face problems. Trust that God holds you, guides you, and protects you. Living with the certainty that God is our safe refuge gives us a peace that surpasses all understanding, allowing us to walk confidently, knowing that no matter what we face, we are not alone. God is with us, holding us with His right hand, offering us His help and saying, "Do not fear, I will help you." Let this promise envelop you and fill you with unshakable confidence in God's power and love. As we reflect on these verses and consider the constant presence of God in our lives, we find an invitation not just to know, but to deeply experience the peace and strength He offers. From the encouraging words to Joshua to the promises of Jesus at the Last Supper, each piece of this biblical journey has guided us to a richer understanding of how faith in God transforms our fear into courage and our anxiety into peace. Each story and verse shared here serves as a reminder that we are not alone. Even in the darkest valleys or the most intimidating battles, God's hand holds and guides us. His presence is a constant light in the darkness, a safe refuge in the storm. So when life's challenges seem insurmountable, remember that the same God who guided David, strengthened Joshua, and promised peace to his disciples is with you today. I invite you to carry these words in your heart and share this message of hope and strength with others. If this video has touched or comforted you, don't hesitate to share it with friends and loved ones. Often, a simple act of sharing can be a beacon of hope for someone in need. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more reflections and explorations of faith. By joining our community, you can continue to grow in your spiritual journey and find support from others who also seek to live a life of trust and peace in God. Remember, every step of your journey, you are not alone. God is with you, holding you with His right hand and guiding you toward a future full of hope and promise. So take this truth, use it as a shield against your fears, and move forward with courage, knowing that God's love and peace are eternal gifts always available to you. If you've reached the end of this video, you are dedicated and committed to spiritual growth and drawing closer to God. Your reaching this point demonstrates your determination to absorb knowledge and apply it to your life. Continue seeking wisdom and working to strengthen your faith and relationship with God. Remember that learning and drawing closer to God is a continuous and rewarding journey. Your voice helps people of all ages draw closer to God, rediscovering forgotten teachings and delving into divine word. Comment, "I am closer to God," to let us know that you have made it this far and that you are on this faith journey with us.